You know, I feel like it's a law that when you become a space marine, you have to kill a bug. Giant bugs, small bugs, brain bugs, acid bugs, right? Every single marine, space marine in fiction, kills bug aliens. Why? I don't know. It's just a law of the universe. Guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and today we are checking out the member. Lots of subscribers. I don't know the terms for anything anymore. Member requested video. This is some cinematics from Starcraft 2, Heart of the Swarm, specifically the movie extended cut, all HD cinematics, and more. So let's, set this bad boy to HD and crack into it. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's a like realistic effect actually of water hitting a windshield in an aircraft. Though I'm always interested by the fact that like you have perfected faster than light space travel, but you still have manned fighters. Like in this day and age, we barely have manned fighters still.
I am the Swarm. Armies will be shattered. Worlds will burn.
Yeah, always kind of curious about the scale of some of these things. So what's interesting to me is that I understand we can gee-whiz and hand-wave away science fiction, but why else are you here if not to hear me roast things? Is that with biological creatures, things tend to get a little funky as they grow larger, right? Here's a normal example, right? Your bones, right, are made of calcium, and when it comes to a human being's size or amount of weight, they can pretty much take it in any position, right? There's a small number of bones where if you had to put like all your weight on them, they would probably crack under the pressure. But if you were to be, say, 15 times the size, the material itself, using calcium-based bones to hold up that much weight, is just not going to work, right? I think as large as terrestrial creatures can get is probably like dinosaurs. But anything larger than that, and you start to run into evolutionary issues. There's just biological material just doesn't have that good of a strength to weight ratio, right? And even the materials we have now, right? We can build a skyscraper as long as that skyscraper barely ever moves. It really doesn't take much shifting of a foundation to collapse that skyscraper. So when you talk about things like giant airships of that scale, right, it just wouldn't be able to sustain itself in that level of gravity. In space, different story, right? Not subject to gravity. But on world, yeah, it seems like something that the scale just doesn't make a ton of sense. So here's sort of always the debate that you have, right? You're fighting something like the Tyranid, you're fighting like the Horde bug type alien species, right? So whether it's the Zerg or the Tyranids or even the bugs of Starship Troopers, right? You have to go to war with the army you have, right? At the end of the day, your world is prepared to defend against other human beings. And so you have weapons that reflect that. And one of the things I'm just going to point out that the infantry supported by tanks is a World War II era formation, right? A little bit you would see it in the First World War as well. But the fact is that we haven't really fought that way in a generation or more, right? That has been replaced with infantry are now supported by, or really supporting, the primary destructive capacity, which is aircraft, right? Infantry are now primarily, most of their firepower, in terms of their mass firepower, is coming from aircraft. Even when I was in Afghanistan, right, the consensus among both U.S. forces and the Taliban was that if U.S. aircraft could get on station, then you didn't have to really worry. The Taliban would not stand and fight. They had wanted no part in facing down aircraft. So all that to say that, I don't know why they chose to do World War II tactics scaled into the sci-fi universe when realistically you would be more likely to see small groups of Space Marines or vehicle-equipped Space Marines calling in massive airstrikes probably from orbit, right? That would be the sci-fi extension of current tactics. So I'm not sure why they did the sci-fi extension of World War II tactics. And obviously, if you had to design an army tailor-made to fight a bug, you would probably do something like the Tau, right, of Warhammer 40k. You would rely on extremely lethal automated forces, especially if they attacked in large waves. What you would want is to create basically a static hail of bullets that would funnel the enemy in, right, like a wave, and then you would just mow them down with a static position with like a belt-fed weapon system, right? And then if it was overwhelmed, you would want to use some sort of area weapon like a daisy cutter type bomb that's going to just shred everything that exists above about 3 feet. And of course, here's the other thing though, in the lore, a lot of these bug type of aliens do very fast evolution. So as you develop new weapons, they would develop new creatures to attack. So perhaps if you had this 3-foot tall daisy cutter slicing legs off of hydralisks or whatever, you would then see an evolution for 2.5-foot tall attacking creatures. Again, all of this tactically is saying to me hasty defense. This is probably not an invasion where they had advanced intelligence that it was coming. They appear to just be sort of rolling out either standard or desperation tactics. Because think about it again, where would the best place be for these siege tanks? Well, it would not be in a city where they have very little line of sight, and they have a little bit of standoff in this public square, but not much. The better place would be on, say, plains or a mesa, right, where they are at elevation on a mountaintop, and so they have a greater range of their weapons, and they can see the enemy from a much greater distance, right? And so, yeah, you also would want to erect some sort of physical obstacle between you and your enemy and your tanks, especially when they are just moving on the ground and don't really fight with projectiles. That's a case where things like concertina wire, tank ditches, any obstacle at all that's going to slow them down or force them to stop at a certain point. Because then what you'll do, again, if this is modern tactics, you'll have a preset line of fire that just tears up the enemy as they reach that point where they're going to be delayed. But if you don't have time to make these plans, or you don't understand the enemy that you're facing, right, you'll probably just roll out the tactics that you're trained to use. And this is probably what that would look like. This seems like sort of a standard, like, urban defense against like a rioting populace, right? Maybe the populace is like armed and is engaging in a riot, and you don't really have a strong commitment to human rights. So just, lining up tanks and shooting them is acceptable.
Now at last, on this world, vengeance shall be mine.
Also, like, you have these gigantic battle cruisers in your arsenal, but you're using these little tiny tanks. It just, again, the underutilization of orbital weapons just doesn't make any sense to me. The fact that this is like a World War II style fight, despite the fact that there's obviously superior technologies available, still bothers me.
For I am the Queen of Blades.
Dun dun. It's a bad dream. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's just like a either memory of when they really didn't understand what the Zerg were, or some sort of fantasy. Remote planetoid. Umojan protector. Okay, I don't remember what a planetoid is. Usually things that end in oid mean artificial or facsimile. So like something that looks like a planet but isn't quite. So maybe this doesn't orbit like it should, or it's too small.
Open the door, son.
Valerian's orders, sir. No visiting.
Open the door.
Okay, that's a pretty cool gee-whiz escalator.
Good morning, Commander.
Junior.
Gentlemen, the test protocol will begin in 2 minutes.
Make the most of this test. It's your last one. Now give us a minute.
Very well.
We're getting out of here tonight, darling.
Good. Then we can go after Minsk.
Forget Minsk. Forget all of it. This is about you and me.
Until Minsk is dead, there can't be a you and me.
Da 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 da. Okay, revenge. I'm just gonna. You've probably heard me talk about this. Revenge is stupid. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't mean if someone wrongs you that you should never take steps to secure yourself and your position, right? But revenge for the sake of revenge is stupid. And that is because oftentimes the desire for revenge isn't really based in rationality, right? And anyone who, of course, rises to high-ranking positions, at least in the in human societies, right, is usually the ones who are willing to do anything and consider situations as dispassionately as possible. right? So if someone betrays you, and if I remember correctly, Artoris Mengsk did sell these guys out, but you can't. But like, is there a reason to want to overthrow him in particular? Maybe, maybe not, right? Again, I understand that like Jim Raynor is probably motivated. He has less, I'm going to say, narcissism, right? But there's a certain subset of people who are compelled to accrue power at all costs, right? And it seems like Kerrigan either has that trait or has it now, right? And so maybe she just wants to get rid of Mengsk because he runs the galaxy. I don't know. It's not clear.
I moved heaven and earth to bring you back, Sarah.
I can't watch you throw that away just for revenge.
Initiating test phase 2.
I never gave up on you, Sarah.
Don't you give up on us!
Test phase 2.
Revenge.
Commencing.
Phase 2, revenge phase. Full disclosure, I played StarCraft 1, never played StarCraft 2.
You made a mess down there, Sarah.
Starting to regret bringing me back?
Never.
I heard about what happened with your friend Tychus. I'm sorry.
He made his choice. I made mine.
Maybe you should have let him kill me. I slaughtered millions as the Queen of Blades.
That wasn't you, Sarah. Leave the past behind, and let's focus on getting out of here.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, this is not a rational person. Because, of course, if you have no idea, clearly she's capable of it. Clearly, something still motivates her beyond rationality. But this dude's sort of sentimentality is clouding all that. Clearly, this is someone who is still extremely dangerous. And for some reason, could become dangerous again.
I'll suit up and meet you here in an hour.
Okay. That sounds good.
So, as I pointed out in other videos, when you see tracer rounds, usually those represent 1 in every 10 rounds that are being fired. The physics actually looks about right. That's really how rounds sort of shot up into the sky look. But again, this is a World War II era tactic. Those have since been totally and completely replaced with missile systems, right? They pack a bigger punch. They can track targets way better. Shooting into the darkness is pretty much ineffectual. There's a few exceptions, one of which is that for anti-projectile systems, say like anti-rocket systems, they will actually use bullets shot into like a very quick hail by an automated system, right? A highly sensitive radar will detect an incoming RPG or mortar round. It'll position 2 guns at it, and it will fire just a hail of minigun rounds. And the calculations are precise enough that it will probably, more often than not, hit that mortar shell, hit that RPG, and detonate it before it can land. Yeah, like there's not really a scenario where a battle cruiser would ever get close enough to anything to warrant defending it with automated turrets. Like, no, you would use an explosive missile. Right, like, look, here are these pods coming in. And like clearly you can track them effectively. They're moving at missile-like speeds, right? So presumably your own missile systems could get it, right? But I guess it's possible that maybe this is functioning like an anti-projectile system in the same way. I don't know.
Warning.
Again, I'm maintaining that they have a fixation on World War II style tactics and brought it into a sci-fi universe. That's obviously the most easily digestible theory.
Dominion forces in sectors 3, 4, and 6.
Sarah.
All personnel must evacuate.
This is Nova. Begin your sweep. Find Kerrigan.
Bravo team, acknowledge.
I love how they're suppressed. Just why? Why? It's not a secret that you're there. There's no need to have suppression. Because, okay, so when you see a suppressor, what suppressors in the real world require is subsonic ammunition. And this is a problem for a couple of reasons. One, and most prominently, it can't go that fast, right? It can be lethal at relatively close ranges, but subsonic ammunition is not going to be very helpful when you're reaching out and touching someone at a great distance, or when you have to penetrate armor, both of which are far more likely than them doing a stealth infiltration, right? So if your plan is to never get detected, then yeah, a suppressor's the way to go. But if your plan is you expect to have to shoot your way through and you expect it to be have to penetrate some armor, you would never want an underpowered subsonic round. I love how he even has the Space Marine backpack, but what's normally the jetpack part that faces down is facing up. That's a nice way to trick the copyright.
Sarah.
The killing will never stop until Minsk is dead.
The Zerg would probably still kill people.
I'm going to make him pay.
That's enough of that. Get it together, darling.
Bravo team, come in. Are you there, Bravo? All units to Sector 6. Go, go, go!
We gotta go.
She's just like, this thing sucks. I once commanded an army of bugs. Where are my bugs?
It's been a long time.
Like riding a bike.
Da da da.
Yep. Like riding a bike.
Starcraft sure loves, like, melodrama, you know? I appreciate their acknowledgement that keeping track of time would be an absolute nightmare, right? In some sort of future where you could just hop around planet to planet. Also, the proof that there's nothing really new in the world. This dropship is pretty flagrantly stolen from the Alien franchise.
Jim? Jim! Where's Jim?
We couldn't get him out.
Valerian.
You left him behind!
Stand down! Let him go, Kerrigan. Valerian is helping us.
There is no us.
IFF negative. Multiple hostiles inside the perimeter.
Scramble attack response squads 3 through 9.
Again, their love of, like, autocannons makes so little sense to me.
Hull breach! Frame 7, deck 3! Defensive maneuver Delta 4. Prep all stations for jump.
I don't know anything about commanding ships in combat from, like, a bridge. So I don't know if these commands, like, make any sense. I imagine having preset battle plans, though, is probably pretty standard. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? To have pre-rehearsed plans. The one he probably described, Delta 4, is probably their, well, frankly, their evac plan or their evasive action plan.
No one is going anywhere until I see Jim.
Shields at 30. Failure imminent. Dominion fleet, this is Hyperion. Cease fire. Crown Prince Valerian is aboard.
My father will sacrifice any piece on the chessboard to take the queen.
We have to jump now. We'll lead them away and circle back for Jim. Decompress. Sarah, we need to work together.
Do what you want. I'm going to find Jim.
Dun, dun. I will say this is obviously very melodramatic, but frankly, getting disparate factions to coordinate looks a lot like this. Like, nobody has any idea. Everybody's doing whatever the hell they want. And this is the problem when you don't have a final authority making these kinds of calls, right? And again, I don't have the in-mission cinematics to really assess one way or the other. But usually with this sort of thing, there is a level, everyone's making rational decisions based on the situation that they're in. And it would sort of make sense, right? Kerrigan is someone who wasn't like a team lead before she got taken in by the Zerg. And I assume that when you're a Zerg commander, like, there's not a lot of independent thought happening outside of your own, right? Like, I imagine that if you were some sort of biological hive mind, you would feel and see and sense every piece of context that your subordinates had, right? So you would feel your hydralisks were stopping because they were hungry or tired or wounded, right? You would feel that your drone was ready to evolve, right? Those things would be communicated to you in perfect fidelity. Right, so you wouldn't need to do the human thing, which is take a moment, ask someone, why did you do X? Why do you feel the need to do Y? Right, and even if you do that, sometimes people don't have choices. They go, hey, I have a boss, right? I will get fired. Right, I'll get relieved of command if I don't do X, or I can't do Y because of this reason. And you just end up with these zero-sum games where allies just have to go, okay, we can't work together. We're going to have to sort of pull in different directions because we're both constrained actors, right? So it makes sense then that Kerrigan would not even take the time to understand why someone made a decision that they did and just go off and start hurting her allies, right?
Jim, are you on this frequency? Jim, are you...
Aren't you a powerful psychic? Like, you're a ghost. You have tremendous powers.
out there? I'm at the rendezvous. It's all clear here. I've been thinking about what you said. There's something dark in me, Jim. I need you. I need you to hear me right now.
Just gonna point something out about a visible laser. The reason people use infrared lasers in the modern era is because it's not really a secret that you're being aimed at, right? Or sorry, they use infrared lasers because only the aimer can see, because usually only one side has night vision devices. It would be a totally different scenario if both sides were reasonably expected to have night vision devices. Then you would never want to tell someone they're being aimed at before they're shot. The other time you see lasers used is in pistols, usually in self-defense or type pistol length engagements, where also it's while both parties can see it, it's such a close fight that the other party is not going, it's going to be obvious to them that someone has drawn a pistol and is attempting to fire at them. You notice that a lot of military pistols don't use that tactic, don't use laser sight assists, right? Those are usually in civilian or law enforcement pistols, where if you're drawing your pistol, it's because the situation has already escalated to an extremely dangerous level, right? And so telling someone that they're being aimed at is actually an opportunity in some ways, but well, you shouldn't draw down a pistol on someone to threaten them, right? But it's not going to be a secret that you've done so. Does that make sense? So like this situation, right, a rifle, if it's a rifle shooting a ballistic cartridge, it won't follow a perfectly straight line, which we saw in the earlier scene. It is shooting rounds, right? Instead, they will travel in an arc. And so the straight line of the laser will intersect the arc basically at the point it leaves the barrel, and then again, let me do this correctly. It'll be at the point it leaves the barrel, it will arc up, and then it will cross the laser again, but only at a fixed point. So right there, the round will probably hit actually above the head, 3 to 4 inches above on the forehead, because the laser and the barrel are separated. I'm sorry, that's coming out of the scope, so it would be 3 or 4 inches below. It would hit him in the teeth.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this news. Notorious rebel Jim Raynor was captured in a daring raid yesterday. He was briefly interrogated and summarily executed. Emperor Mengsk had this to say.
Proud Dominion citizens, at long last our nightmare is over. The lawless terrorist, James Raynor, is dead. With his death comes a new era of peace. The Protoss have retreated from our dominion, and the Zerg threat has been removed. Their swarm is shattered and leaderless. Soon, we will eradicate every last Zerg on Char. In short, we have won.
Okay. Yeah, pretty transparent character development there, but you gotta find allies when you don't have others. Now, here's sort of the danger, right? Is you never want to announce that your enemy has been killed unless you're absolutely certain that is indeed the case, because it is a huge propaganda coup to claim someone is dead when they are not. The U.S. did this a couple of times, I believe, with guys like Zarqawi and other notorious figures of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, right? And that's because they would believe that they had killed these people in drone strikes, they would announce it, but then it made them look not only ineffective, but actually foolish, when in fact you would see these Zarqawi or other prominent figures then release a propaganda video saying, nope, you failed, I'm still alive.
Our peace and security is assured. Good night, my faithful subjects.
Navigation online. Destination Zerg space. Confirm.
Confirmed.
Dun dun. right? See, in orbit, you can get as big as you want because there's no gravity. It's just when you have to deal with when you're inside of a planet's atmosphere that gravity, especially when you have different sized planets with different gravities, even Earth and Mars that are really similar in size, have comparatively, right, in terms of, you know, celestial bodies, right, they're very similar. Earth and Mars have totally different gravities and therefore would actually have totally different flight characteristics. So creating a ship or flying creature that will function well on Mars is quite different from creating one that will work well on Earth, right? You also have problems with atmospheric density and temperature and all this sort of stuff, right? It would be really hard to engineer a biological creature that could sort of float, be huge and float in a wide variety of worlds. The Tyranid lore, I think, solves this really well, where they just sort of say, again in the lore, that Tyranids are just able to evolve really quickly. And as soon as a particular subspecies is no longer useful for taking over a particular planet, it just gets chewed up into biomass and then spit out into one tailor-made for the next mission. I think that is a rapid evolutionary, alien creature. That's exactly how they would do it. Evolution is nothing if not highly, highly utilitarian.
Warning. Zerg organisms detected.
That's why I'm here. They'll either accept me as their queen, or I'll start killing them one by one until they do.
I love how she talks to an automated voice.
What are you?
I am Isha. Your Majesty used to store all her ideas, thoughts, and plans within me. Do you not remember?
Yes, I do remember you. More importantly, you remember me.
You are the Queen of Blades. I obey.
Perfect. Summon the swarm and prepare to move on Core Hall.
The swarm is in disarray and will not answer your call. Most Zerg on Calder are under the command of Broodmother Nefash. She seeks to create her own swarm. While she lives, the swarm will be divided.
Not for long it won't. Take us down to the surface.
Yeah, always sort of interesting how you would manage a gigantic hive mind, right? That's one of those logistical problems that doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, in lore, the hive mind, everything is sharing all information all of the time, but you end up with these problems like this, right? Where you can't really centralize all thinking, certainly not in a human-sized brain. Most human beings can't even multitask, right? Because our brains are sort of crappy. They're not crappy. They're awesome, but they're small, right? They're meant to manage one body and occasionally a few other things on the outside. So this idea that you could command billions of life forms independently, not really going to work, right? And you would end up probably having to do some sort of hierarchy, right? So you would have to have very simple brains governing the creatures themselves, with slightly larger brains acting as like sub-commanders.
We captured a prisoner in the wastes and subdued her, my queen. She says she is a researcher.
I didn't order you to take prisoners.
Abathur requested it. He wants to dissect her.
What's the point? He won't be able to use Protoss genetic material.
He likes to try.
What are your people doing here?
We study this moon to see if
That's some serious Eldar IP. The giant Eldar-style hat.
its rotation can be altered, its climate improved. Do you understand? We are only colonists, and you are killing us.
Yes. And if I let you live, you'll call your Golden Armada and they will kill me.
Kill thousands to save yourself. Is that how you justify this?
I justify nothing. There is no moral high ground here. Your people have killed billions of Zerg. We are all covered in blood. There may be more on my hands than yours, but in the end, we are both killers.
Then you need only await the Golden Armada. Your death will be swift.
I'm sorry.
For what? Slaughtering my people?
For what I must do to you. Your friends on that ship can sense you. They know they left one behind.
No.
But they can't warp you to their ship, because I'm blocking them.
No! No!
But if I drop the veil...
Do not warp me in, Templar! Do not!
You let the other Protoss take her?
She will be their death.
Dun, dun. Yeah, see, this is one of those things, again, a trope from sci-fi that we just don't do, right? Here in our world, right, we have agreement among most countries that we're not going to develop biological weapons. But you can imagine if you have a level of technological advancement such that you can build, like city-sized space cruisers that travel faster than light, you can create some lethal germs, viruses, right, or chemical weapons. And so the idea that in an all-out war against non-humans that you would not utilize them is preposterous, frankly. You would try everything under the sun to dissolve, disrupt, and kill the Zerg, right? As the Zerg would try to do to you, right? So this idea that the most efficient way to fight is to create roughly human-sized creatures and have them slice at humans and Protoss is ridiculous, right? Obviously, human beings on Earth could barely master their own diseases, right? We still sort of take some L's against infectious disease. So creating a biological killing machine to destroy people is almost just like the logical way to do these things. So it always sort of bothers me that, I get it, the gameplay would be terrible if it was like Public Health Crisis 3, Public Health Crisis 3. Like, you just have to, like, quarantine your colonists. You're just like, quarantine. And that's like, colonists decide disease isn't real. And you're just like, oh no, how do I stop them? And you can't, because there's no killing mechanic in the game. So you just lose. You just lose the game because people are dumb. Or because the disease spreads really well. All right, guys. So we are at about 45 minutes of talk time. I think this is a logical stopping point. This was a really interesting look. I really did enjoy the fact that this game borrows so much from, well, other sci-fi tropes, especially our friends at Warhammer 40,000, right? It's got, obviously, the bug race, the space marines, the sort of ethereal, ultra psychic race. But here's the thing, this also, all of those tropes did not originate with Warhammer 40,000, right? For space marines fighting bugs date all the way back to Robert Heinlein in the 50s. The ethereal, highly psychic attuned race is sort of a sci-fi-ification of elves from Lord of the Rings, which predates even that. So this idea that, there's only so much under the sun, and the fact is that it's hard sometimes to reimagine things, because at the end of the day, if you see someone in power armor carrying a big power armor rifle, there's a bunch of things that right? Culturally. You know that they are organized in military units, probably fighting as squads. You can be reasonably certain that they're going to drop in from orbit somehow, that you expect faster than light travel, right? These are all things that you don't need to explain. But like, imagine if you had to explain for a viewer, well, the ships are going faster than light from planet to planet, right? This is a future, right? This is power armor that's helping them, right? These tropes help us understand a situation, a work of art in this case, much, much, much faster, right? Zerg may never acknowledge that they are a sort of hive mind type of society, but we understand it because they're an alien race that exhibits bug-like characteristics. And we've seen enough of those in fiction that we can simply internalize that without exposition. Okay, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you to the channel members who suggested this. This was a lot of fun. If you want to become a channel member, it's the join button right next to the subscribe button. And it first gets you exclusive access to rooms on the Discord and lets you submit and vote on my Friday reaction video. And you get to get priority access to join when I play multiplayer games. Other than that, guys, you should definitely check out the Discord. It's free for everybody. It's a lot of fun. And check out the podcast, The Combat Veteran Breakdown. Other than that, that's all I had for you today. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.